This is macOS Ken.
The business of apps for Apple Vision Pro, an Apple AI buy that probably means nothing, and we officially know Apple's problem with Jon Stewart. It is Tuesday, the 13th of February, 2024. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from macOS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. When the App Store first opened for iPhone, there were at least a couple of races being run. The race to be first in certain segments, and the race for the most downloads. Unintentionally, that second one led to a race to the bottom in terms of price, with developers going cheap or free to rack up downloads. Apps for Apple Vision Pro may be a different beast. TechCrunch has new numbers from app intelligence firm AppFigures, indicating that over half the apps developed or adapted specifically for Apple's headset are paid downloads. At 52%, it is just over half, but still it's over half. TechCrunch calls it a surprising percentage, given that across the wider App Store, only 5% of apps monetize this way. As for the rest, the report says 13% of the apps made for Vision Pro offer subscriptions, while 35% do not monetize through the App Store. One assumes that at least some of that 35% not monetizing through the App Store supports other businesses. There was an article in the Harvard Business Review late last week profiling early movers in apps for Apple Vision Pro. Among them were a fashion brand, a cosmetics brand, and a home improvement chain. While the numbers offer an interesting starting point, there's really no telling how this ends. Quoting the report, AppFigures tells TechCrunch a further analysis of all apps made for Vision Pro indicates that apps have an average price of $5.67, with the highest price at $98 for an interactive periodic table of elements. Most apps are priced at $9.99 or below, and if you bought all the paid apps, it would cost you $1,089.07, which is still less than the cost of the device itself, which starts at $3,500. TechCrunch sees the possibility of an app ecosystem for Apple Vision Pro driven by paid downloads rather than subscription pricing. As a guy who spends money, the idea of a one-time charge sounds awesome. But as a guy who makes money, or tries to anyway, I'm a pretty big fan of recurring revenue. All of that said, we are less than 2 weeks into the app ecosystem for Apple Vision Pro. Maybe we give it another couple of weeks before deciding how it's going to be. Seeming to agree that it's too soon to say is Tom Fisk over at Immersive Wire. Between the high starting price and being sold in the US only, he points out that what we're looking at now is not exactly accessible to a global audience. Apple has not announced the number of headsets sold, though we know it is measured in the hundreds of thousands rather than the millions, he says. He goes on to add, the total addressable market is not high when compared to ecosystems run by Steam or Meta. All of that said, what he's found are small numbers. Though many developers would not share the actual rate of downloads, the ones who did said they were having trouble cracking 1,000 total. Posing the question, why are developers struggling to get seen by new users? Fisk says most site discoverability is an issue, as it is difficult for users to find the right apps on the headset. The search function should be better, and the top 10 list for popular downloads should be clearer to find on the storefront. But again, it's been less than 2 weeks. Fisk had one dedicated Vision Pro user, a guy from game maker Niantic, figuring that a lot of people have spent a lot of time playing with the features that came loaded on the headset. There's plenty of time for people's curiosity to move outside the box. There's also time for Apple to refine the device's App Store experience, though you would think that would be a thing they'd be on quickly. I asked last week for your take on Apple Vision Pro itself. I'm curious whether more of you have strapped on Apple's headset, and for those of you who have, what apps have grabbed your time, attention, and money? What do the apps do? What do they do for you? And what do you do with them? Email and virtual phone lines are open. Drop me a line, info@macosken.com, or leave me a voicemail, 716-780-4080. Life's gotten easier for Apple Vision Pro owners who forget their passcode. I told you last week that people to whom that happens would either have to take the device to an Apple store to have it reset or send it off to AppleCare. Never mind that now. A piece from Engadget says Apple on Monday released visionOS 1.0.3. The release notes for that are sparse, saying this update provides important bug fixes and adds an option to reset your device if you've forgotten your passcode. Apple Insider says Apple has bought a domain suggesting generative AI additions may come to iWork. That seems unlikely, though, according to Apple Insider. Boy, this planet, huh? According to the report, the Cupertino company now owns the domain iWork.ai. The buy was first spotted by the site buyaidomains.com, which sees the purchase as a signal that Apple will relaunch the iWork brand to compete with MS Office and Google Docs. I don't know that Apple Insider doubts the possibility or probability of AI lending a hand in Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, the three core apps of what used to be called iWork. What Apple Insider doubts is the relaunch of that brand. The site sees it as much more likely that Apple is simply trying to stop anybody else from using or misusing the term iWork. We finally, officially, know why the problem with Jon Stewart is off of Apple TV+. As had been rumored, the Cupertino company had a problem with things he might say. I'm sorry, isn't that why you hire Jon Stewart, not why you fire him? Stewart started his part-time return gig on The Daily Show last night. Ahead of that, a piece from Variety says he sat down to promote his return with CBS Mornings. Talking about the return, Stewart said he wanted a place to unload thoughts as we get into this election season. He thought he would be doing that on Apple TV+, but he says they felt they didn't want him to say things that might get him in trouble. Again, isn't that why you hire Jon Stewart? To say he was dismissive of the Cupertino streamer would be accurate. Still unclear exactly what topic or topics Apple found too problematic. You can catch Stewart's full CBS Morning segment on YouTube. And finally today, if you missed the Apple Music Super Bowl halftime show starring Usher over the weekend, you can still see it. Or if you did see it, you can see it again. 9to5Mac says it is available in Apple Music on the Usher's Road to Halftime page. It's currently up top in the Browse section of Apple Music as well. Now, if you don't have Apple Music, do you have access to the YouTube? Apple Music has a YouTube channel that does not have the halftime show. It does have pre-show videos, though. For some reason, the halftime show on YouTube is reserved for the NFL's YouTube channel. Not that I don't get why they'd want it. In the first 18 hours of availability, the NFL's copy of the show picked up over 10 million views. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com, You can reach me a couple of ways. info@macoscan.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.